Jerry Lee Francis.
I'm going to use my foot next time.
Yeah, keep that thing back. Yeah, good. All right, so happy Mother's Day. Oh, happy Mother's Day? Thank you, yes. Happy Mother's Day to all of you this morning who are in the process of birthing the thought you hold within your heart in your deepest, most objectified levels of thought for your best life now. And I trust this is good news for you this morning. Yeah, so maybe not, but I've been thinking on mothers and Mother's Day through the week. And being a mother today is not simply the act of giving birth. So I really appreciate what Reverend Jeannie had to say from the perspective of actually being a mother and now a grandmother, not a great-grandmother yet. Not yet. So now as someone who really didn't have any skin in the game outside of being a father myself, this is what I think. So the act of being a mother today is not simply an act of giving birth. There are many mothers today, for instance, going it alone as single mothers. So even there's no longer a kind of a traditional mother thing going on. And so unfortunately, many of our households are households of single mothers. There are birth mothers who love their children so much that they had to pay them forward in order to give them a better shot at a good life. A life, surrender them to people who were willing to make a home for them and were better prepared to care for them. There are the adoptive mothers who received the gift and raised that child as from their own womb. And today there are stepmothers out there helping to raise their husband's children, balancing the needs of blended family life. So here in the West, particularly in America, the motherhood has become a job of juggling and spinning plates simultaneously. And many mothers fret that they aren't doing it right. I hear this a lot. That they are somehow damaging their children with their impatience and their intolerance and their when they lose it and yell at them. Maybe even sometimes smack them. Which is kind of out of vogue today, but it was quite the practice when I was a kid. Learn how to duck. Yeah. And I can tell you that for all of us, when we choose to live consciously, we choose to live in love, and we can love our children through any seeming calamity. So I like to tell the story of running down one of my stepsons and making an amends to him because his mother and I were both still drinking at the time. And I have all these ideas of all the damage that I'd done to him. And he finally said to me, well, Mike, I got to tell you, the one thing that I remember about you is that you took me fishing. Right? I remember the things that I, said in anger or whatever, in frustration, and he remembered that I took him fishing. So, whatever we're thinking about what we've done to our kids, we can rest assured that we can love them through any calamity, any seeming calamity. Even children who do not belong to us. So in the grocery store, our next door neighbor, or even our young children around here in this place, that we can all practice being a mother of love, which means men too. Even mothers like us can love too. So we can love them up and remember that the Christ. So here's a couple of images that I have. I wanted to make it kind of a multi-racial thing. And so even, this is kind of what it was like growing up at my house. So even remember the Christ who observed that unless we come to life as little children, we cannot enter the kingdom. And if we cannot come to the, in other words, if we cannot come to the world with beginner's mind, with a sense of awe and exploration and joy, we cannot effectively access the law of good in which we are immersed and have our being. So even as we acknowledge that not everyone gets a good start, that some mothers are more conscious than others, we can still feel the gratitude for this gift of life. So regardless of what we may think about the conditions of our life right now as it stands today, we can be grateful that we have life and that we choose to live. Remember, Ernest Holmes says the important thing is that as we know that we are alive, that we live and really live. So in this way, I do want to honor my own mother and thank her for giving me this gift of life. I'm grateful that she's still with me. I want to thank Margaret, the mother of my son Michael, for the gift of our son. I want to thank Nancy for sharing her family with me during my married life with her. And I want to thank my stepmother, Eileen, for caring for my father in such excellent fashion as he moves in to his 80th year this year. So there's a lot of different little wrinkles to motherhood. It's not like when, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of grew up in the military version of the Ozzie and Harriet thing. There weren't very many divorced people. People had traditional families. They were pretty cohesive units. So I just kind of wanted to acknowledge that. And yet at the same time, we know that there are, for many people, and I have heard this through years of 12-step, but also in my work as a practitioner and now a minister, that folks have unresolved stuff with their mothers. That's just the way of it. And I found this saying by Confucius: "He who cannot forgive others breaks the bridge over which he himself must pass." So I'm going to leave that up there for a little while. So this idea of if we have unresolved stuff, and so I wanted to create a little ritual here this morning. And it's not, maybe we, for myself, I'm blessed, I have a good relationship with my mother, and I always have. I would think my siblings would say the same thing. And I know that that's not always the case. So we're going to have a little ritual here today, and just to honor our mother. To honor our mother in light, recognizing the light within that has been passed through eons of time, expressing, and as we chose to incarnate in this time. So as I said, I'm delighted really that my mother is still here, happy to say, and we were talking yesterday about her own regrets, about how she could have done things differently. So from the other side of things. And what I know about that is that I always felt loved as a kid, and I know my siblings did too. Our mother saw us as the potential we could become. Now, most of us did not believe her. I remember my mom telling me all kinds of stuff about how good looking I was, how smart I was all this and that, and I never believed her because she's my mom. She's supposed to say stuff like that. Right? So, but she said it, and she saw it, and she still sees it for all of us, all 7 of us, right, that are left. Now, whether we see it ourselves is another story. And all this by way of saying that I know that Mother's Day, like many designated holidays, may not be all it's cracked up to be for some. And I have friends who've had to release their mothers this year to the next incarnation. And for many people, they still have issues with their mother. That still, even after all this time, an email or a phone call can put them in a funk. So there's unfinished business, and they may or may not be here. And I would like for us, to the extent that we may need to address that and to leave it here today. That today we honor our mothers regardless, again, of our outward condition, regardless of what we think about what it's supposed to look like the controlling or the apathy, the workaholism or the alcoholism. Being grateful instead for the gift of life itself. For we are the end product of a moment of time, a singularity, when the quantum field in which all mass and substance was released by one big cosmic bang, where the quantum field within its indwelling intelligence found a way, as matter coalesced to produce the elements of the universe, that some became self-replicating substance, reforming and reformulating new compounds, new molecules from itself, out of itself, that it might further its reach and ability to create. And we are the logical and inevitable product of natural laws set in motion all those eons ago. The fact that we are here is truly a miracle. Consider the act of, almost said the act of contrition. Consider the act of conception, right? Half of what we need from both sides, love and law, coalescing into one single unit to replicate itself within the womb, within the feminine, within the receptive principle of the womb. The feminine receptive principle, Holmes called the law. That we are a product of that. It's really quite miraculous. I think sometimes we take simple things for granted. And that we have chose out of billions of if the planet's 4 billion years we've been around, let's say, as humans in this manifestation, some 50,000 plus years, that we chose this moment in time to incarnate with the people who we have brought forth in this life for this experience. That in a very real way, on a soul level, our parents called us forth to, and we're all here working out our stuff together. And so if we're in conflict with them or with anyone else, it's then up to us to recognize that we must practice forgiveness at every level of our life. So both the Buddha and Jesus both spoke to this. Jesus spoke to it by saying, Peter came to him and asked him, how many times do you forgive? Is 7 enough? That's like once a day for a week. That should do it, right? 70 times 7. You're not going to do that in a day. Although if you chanted that for a day, you would probably shift things. And that's part of a greater story. Jesus, to illustrate that, tells a story of a man comes, a slave. The wording actually is a slave goes to his master, and he owed his master a huge sum of money. And he, groveling before him, he begged for forgiveness of this debt. And the master, moved by a heart of compassion, forgave the debt. So then he went forward and found a slave who owed him $100. Let's say he owed the master, $10,000. He found another slave who owed him $100 and berated him and cornered him and demanded payment. And did this to all the other people that he was working with until finally got back to the master what he was up to. And so then in that way he forced him to pay back the entire debt with interest. And I read that this morning as I was preparing for this lesson here today, thinking about that's exactly what happens within using the law. That we cannot practice the law unless we really understand that we live in a law of circulation. That what we put into it, we're going to get back. So if we put into this law and set into law love, forgiveness, compassion, right? A commitment to releasing any sense of resentment, right? So in the Buddhist teaching, resentment is like drinking poison, expecting the other guy to die. Right? So there's all these great stories by these teachers who come before us. to teach us how to be free. Ultimately, to be able to cross that bridge ourselves. Now, why is this important to a religious scientist? Because I feel the greatest obstacle in our life that keeps us from really experiencing the sweetness of life, to suck the joy out of the marrow of the bone of life itself, as Thoreau talked about, is resentment, intolerance. And the only way through that is to practice forgiveness. The only way. And just as we cannot take those first steps for a baby, we can't live their lives for them, right? There's only one person who can practice that forgiveness, and that is ourselves. Now, sometimes we have to acknowledge that we are unwilling to do that. That there are some things that we are unwilling to forgive. And yet, even within that acknowledgement, there is still a need to purge that poison of Aaron's thinking, really. It's a natural process, but it serves no one. If we're living in resentment, we're living in the past. We don't want to do that. We want to live in the now, creating our best now for our best tomorrow, yes? That's what we're about in the science of mind. So today, what I would like to do, and our musicians have a great song to go with this, so I'm going to let you guys participate here first if you'd like to. So what I'd like you to do is just when you're ready, to come up and just simply light a candle. And this candle can be whatever it is that you need for it to be. Right? If this is the light of forgiveness for you, with your relationship with your mother, then so be it. If it's a light of remembrance, or maybe it's both. But the idea is that we're bringing forth the light from the healing candle, and each one of us, when we're ready, will come forward and do that. So let's have our musicians come up if they'd like to do that, and then we'll allow them to provide us some background music. And Mike, maybe you can bring the lights down just a wee bit. Just take a moment, acknowledge either happy Mother's Day, this light of love, I leave here.
Sweet mother, I'm coming home. Now I know I'm not alone, 'cause I've been far, but now I'm close. Sweet mother, I'm coming home. Tell me, mother, can you hear me sing? Your love is everything, heart and soul, breath and skin. Your love is everything. Oh mother, please hold me tight.
So as we stand in the light of this moment, of this precious sacred moment where we have come together to share the light, to share the healing flame of love itself, now we know that the healing power of the one mind of Spirit is within us even now, making all things whole, calling forth our recognition of the full and complete revelation of the restoration of our mind and the mind of Spirit. That we can know that there is nothing outside of ourselves that can harm us in any way except our own thinking. And so in this moment now, we raise our thought to the highest levels of consciousness, allowing our hearts to be cracked open, to be the sacred heart of the Christ mind itself, to be the sacred heart of the Buddha mind, the compassionate nature of God itself, expressing itself as our life today. So yes, we honor the sacred feminine in all things. We honor the sacred feminine within ourselves. We honor our mothers, all those who are yet to be mothers, knowing that we are all midwives to this thing that we call life. And so we call ourselves and our fellows forth now for the greatest expression of this life. Cooperatively, in faith, in love, expressing truth, beauty, and yes, even hope, knowing that God is. And so it is.
So it is.
Making all things whole, calling forth our recognition of the full and complete revelation of the restoration of our mind and the mind of Spirit. That we can know that there is nothing outside of ourselves that can harm us in any way except our own thinking. And so in this moment now, we raise our thought to the highest levels of consciousness, allowing our hearts to be cracked open, to be the sacred heart of the Christ mind itself, to be the sacred heart of the Buddha mind, the compassionate nature of God itself, expressing itself as our life today. So yes, we honor the sacred feminine in all things. We honor the sacred feminine within ourselves. We honor our mothers, all those who are yet to be mothers, knowing that we are all midwives to this thing that we call life. And so we call ourselves and our fellows forth now for the greatest expression of this life. Cooperatively, in faith, in love, expressing truth, beauty, and yes, even hope, knowing that God is. And so it is.
So it is.